AEW has a big TV deal on the horizon. So we were gonna have a friend of ours on, but it doesn't look like he's gonna be able to make it. So
That's okay.
we're just gonna go ahead and talk about it. So our friend Ryan Frederick, so he took to the board at some point earlier in the week, probably like maybe even it was over the weekend. I don't remember which day.
The board's a
And he
terrible
was
place for the record.
it is. It's the Wrestling Observer board. It's a cesspool. Don't ever go there.
Yes.
But he went to the board, and there's a thread on there that kind of has been talking about AEW and Warner Media since Warner Media sold to Discovery. There's been an ongoing thread since that happened of people predicting doom, people predicting success, and then all the ups and downs of Warner Media. There's a whole thread about it. It's like couple hundred pages at this point. So he went on there, and he was just, because AEW Collision's coming up and there were rumors about All In going to Max, he went on there and hypothesized, which is more of an educated guess. He just kind of did some numbers, talked to some people, and made a prediction that they would be getting AEW's upcoming TV deal would be a couple $100 million a year spread out over the two shows for about 5 years. And it would be, around $1 billion over 5 years. That was his prediction. Right. Well, then another friend of ours hits us up and was like, hey, I think I got the numbers. It's a 5-year deal, about $1.1 to $1.2 billion. He told us that. And then that same figure made it over to Joe Lanza. Wrestling Discord. And he had the exact same numbers and he posted it on his Discord. I don't know. He wasn't reporting that. He's like, this is what I'm hearing. Right. And he's just having a conversation with his audience. So, and Joe is not like a journalist. He's not a reporter. He's kind of like us. He's just kind of a fun guy that has a fun podcast. Right. But he also
gets
has
scoops though. He gets scoops.
He does get the scoops, but he doesn't really, he's not like Meltzer or Sapp or any of those guys. He's not going to like tease, hey, major scoop coming on the flagship this week. No, he's just going to like, hey, we're having a conversation and we're shooting the shit, and he'll just drop a scoop. That's kind of how he does it, right? So he has the same numbers, and then that makes Ryan then go back to the board like, hey, look, multiple people have this same number and this same figure. We're looking out. He gets a bunch of shit for it. Everybody's calling him out, a bunch of nonsense. The guy just made a prediction, and now the prediction kind of looks like it's about accurate. And I think that he deserves a little bit of credit for that, for doing a little bit of homework and trying to come up with a number. And I think a lot of us were kind of already doing that anyway. And his number turned out to be, I don't want to say accurate because the deal hasn't been signed yet and we don't know the numbers, but the numbers are out there, right? And it's $1.1 to $1.2 billion. I've heard it could even get up to $1.4 billion.
With incentives.
But he was getting some heat for it. Yeah, we don't know. Yeah. I have no idea if this is going to be an HBO Max thing, or a Max is going to be included, if pay-per-views are included or anything like that, or if it's just the television product, the 3 TV shows that are across the Warner Brother properties. But I don't know what it all means. All I do know is that this is freaking awesome for AEW. And if you're a wrestling fan, you should be really happy right now.
So I don't know if you heard Observer Live today with Brian and Semp. He was Brian speculated there's a possibility that this number was floated out by WWE in an effort to get fans talking about a $1 billion deal. And then if AEW announces something smaller, they can, it downplays them.
Right.
So I would think that if that was accurate, and again, let's be honest, that is not beyond WWE. We talked about it last week and got a lot of views, by the way. Yeah. We talked about it last week that they're not happy about WWE specifically. They're not happy about the Wembley thing because it's going to show out Clash the Castle. It's not going to do the gate WrestleMania did, but it's going to be in a conversation. And the TV deal in itself is not good for them because they want to be the only game in town. And it's hard to be the only game in town when your competition, who you're beating pretty handily at this point, to be honest with you, is succeeding.
Yeah.
Right. They'll cry poor. They'll cry foul. They'll cry underdog because that's just what they do, even though they're a monolith. So it's possible because we've seen them do stuff like this before, right? With the Coppinger. That came from Nick Khan. Like saying, "Oh, they're scaling it."
Explain the Coppinger thing real quick. Just
I thought we talked about it last week, but I'll do it again.
You know what? I meant to touch on it, and I listened back, and we never touched on it.
We didn't.
We didn't.
Oh.
No.
Bad podcast hosts.
Yeah.
So Mike Coppinger, probably the boxing reporter, right? You would say that.
Since Dan Rayfield left ESPN and just went to Substack, he is the number one boxing reporter and the worldwide leader in sports for ESPN. So I'd say he's right there at the top.
Yeah, okay. So he puts out a thing right at the first day of AEW's pre-sales saying, "Oh, here in AEW is going to scale Wembley down to 40,000. What a shame. Not going to be like when Tyson Fury fought. Was it Deontay Wilder?
Deontay Wilder, yeah.
Yeah. Last summer with 90,000 people there. Nothing like a fight. I'm paraphrasing. It was pretty close to that, though.
Mhm.
And then Tony Khan went ape shit saying that's bullshit. That comes from Nick Khan. By the way, it was Coppinger's agent before. So, and then Coppinger never copped up to it. Left it up. So this is kind of what they do, right?
Yeah.
Nick Khan, especially, really good at massaging a message with the mainstream. So it's entirely possible that is a fake number. However, I'm of the mind remember when they thought that Mercedes Moné would debut for AEW, and as the show got closer, it started coming out. It's not going to be here. 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 And people were like, no, they're working us. They're working us. And it turned out it wasn't her. I would like to think that because Tony Khan is online, as we're all terminally aware, I would like to think that if this was not accurate, or at least in the ballpark, he would have his people saying it's not accurate instead of saying nothing.
Yeah.
Now, there could be under NDAs, but there's ways to circumvent things.
Dude, I don't know. So I watched Dynamite last night, and Tony Khan looked really fucking stoked about the announcement that he's going to have next week. Like, he looked like he was like emotionally, like, just pumped up, amped, excited. I thought at one point he might cry tears of joy. And there's a little bit of nervousness in him because, he wants to tell the secret, but he can't. I think that if the numbers aren't exactly what we're hearing, I think it's going to be pretty damn close.
I think so,
right? Too. And like a lot of times when these numbers are floated out, one side might be floating them out versus the other side to have leverage and negotiations and yada yada yada. But whatever it is, it always ends up being in that same ballpark.
It does.
And then there's typically parts of the deal that don't make the rumor mill that we end up finding out after it's already said and done. So I'm like, as kind of like a TV business nerd that I have become, I've been reading, periodicals about, Hulu and Disney Plus merging into one app, and, the issues with Paramount and Viacom and all that stuff. I think this is just incredible. I think it makes all the sense in the world. WBD, we keep thinking they're dying and they just keep getting bigger, right? And it seems like to me they're about to strike $1 million deal. But the big question is that going to include Max? And we talked about it last week, and we still can't get an answer one way or the other as to whether or not Max is going to be a part of this thing. But for $1 billion for, let's be honest, for AEW, that is second place by a long shot to WWE in this distant second place by a long shot. I would think that if Warner is willing to spend $1 billion over 5 years, that the two shows that are not likely to be breaking 1 million viewers more often than not are not really getting a significant amount of ad rates. I would think they would want pay-per-views included in that into their streaming deal.
I would think so. I would assume they would want pay-per-views, and I would assume they want the library.
Yeah, because if you take a look at the ESPN Plus model, that what has been so successful for them was them bringing over the UFC, all the UFC content to include the pay-per-views. Now, if Max is going to make you pay, $16.99 a month and then charge you $40 for a pay-per-view, I don't know that that's going to work, but you're going to have some type of premium live exclusive content on that app for it to be able to work.
Wrestling fans are not MMA fans. And no. I do think WWE is going to want to move into that eventually. Mainly, I think because Endeavor's already doing that and making a lot of money with UFC, I just see that being a possibility. AEW is a different boat altogether. And like you talked about how ESPN Plus is basically surviving on UFC. Peacock's, let's be honest, Peacock is surviving on WWE. Yeah. Right. Peacock, this marriage has been perfect for both companies, right? It blew up WWE's visibility. It's helping Peacock grow, right? Peacock is they're still not making money,
No,
but
but
the
they're
most
playing the
successful
long game.
they are playing the
Yeah.
long game, and Comcast can afford to play the long game.
Yeah.
But it's spooky. I don't think that it's been bad for either company, to be honest with you. So I can see, and we talked about this last week, I can see Warner saying, okay, we're going to play the same deal. And if you
Mhm.
get half, maybe even a third of what Peacock's getting with WWE, you're okay. Because what
Yeah.
else? Not a whole lot WWE's doing is working right now. And I know people like to go, oh, AEW is going to get canceled. Look at these ratings. I mean, they finished ninth last night and had one of their best ratings of the year against stiff competition.
Yeah. Yeah. NHL, NBA, and Donald freaking Trump was back on television. I would say this was like his first like public, this was a CNN town hall, but this was like his first public like debate type of forum where he's doing a question and answer session since he lost the election,
Well, since he
right?
got convicted of rape too, but
Yeah.
that's
Well,
neither here nor there.
hold on, hold
Um,
on. He was held liable. We got
liable,
to say that.
held
Like
accountable, not liable, held accountable
yeah,
in
yeah.
a
Well,
court
they
of
were said
law.
they said he was no. The term that they're using is liable. That
Oh,
he is liable
liable.
for
I you said
damages. So he
libel.
had to
Sorry.
no liable for damage for 5 million. This is not a political podcast, but if we're gonna say something, we got to make sure that we're saying it correctly
And
before somebody
much like
records us and sends it to him.
much like O.J. Simpson in a civil court
Yeah,
lost. It's very similar.
yeah,
Anyway, yes, that's a monster. So there was a monster, and you look at those. If you someone compared, I think it was on the VOW Discord. Someone posted the ratings, the Showbuzz Daily ratings from this week and from a year ago, dude. And we talk about contraction in TV ratings. Not this week. Everything was
yeah.
significantly higher. Basketball was almost double what it was this
Wow.
time last year. And Vanderpump Rules is doing great too. I don't even know what that is. All I know is it does
I
really well.
honestly I don't know what it is, and I don't care enough to go
Me
find
neither.
out. I just know that it's really popular.
Yeah, it's killing with females. So hey, kudos to
Yeah,
the Vanderpumpers. So this is great for AEW.
yeah,
Tony Khan won. Like you think about over the years, how many people have come along and tried to create major national wrestling, right? On their own, like Joe Pedicino, Paul Heyman. Who else am I thinking of? Eddie
Dixie
Gilbert, like
Carter.
Dixie Carter,
Yeah,
Andrew McManus. Like so many guys have come along over the last 40 years and tried to create a national wrestling promotion. And the only one who was able to do it was Ted Turner, and that was just because he was Ted freaking Turner.
yeah.
And every single one of them failed.
How
Every
long
one
did
of them.
WCW last?
W
So when Ted Turner took over to the moment it died, how long did it last?
13 years. Not quite. 12 and
Okay,
a half years. 12 and a half
12
years.
and a half years. And then Nitro was on the air for what, 5.5, 6 years?
95 to 2001. So not
6 years.
quite 6. 5.5. You're right.
Close.
5.5.
Yeah. So because it was September of '95 to March of 2001, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 5.5 years. It was 5.5 years where they actually were somewhat competitive. Well, actually,
4.
no, it was only a couple year period they were somewhat competitive. But
3.
once Hogan got there in '94, they were kind of like they became a bigger deal instantly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to
No.
count like 90, they did.
Kinda.
So they did it. They
Kinda.
did it some good buy rates. They did some good.
At,
They sold some
at,
houses.
at first they
Yeah.
did okay. When Hogan first comes in, they do a monster buy rate, and then it quickly goes back to what it was. By the time before
Yeah.
the NWO comes around, they're below pre-Hogan pay-per-view numbers.
Right.
Right. The best thing that ever. I just started listening to the Nitro book again just today when I was mowing the lawn. I just started listening to it again for the first
So
time in like 4 years.
the Nitro book, or was that the Death of
Nitro,
WCW?
not
Nitro book. Okay,
the
I
Nitro
haven't
book.
listened to the Nitro book yet. I need to listen to
Oh,
that.
highly recommended. I'll tell you. I'll
Yeah.
mention why I'm doing that later.
Okay.
Highly recommended. Really good book.
Oh,
Death
cool.
of WCW is great because it's Brian, and you get Brian's
Yeah.
smart assedness the whole time. But this is different. This is a very different take on it. Very very sober. Very business oriented. So I think you'd like it actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, so WCW existed for 12 years, and for half of that existence, it just kind of floated, right?
Yeah.
Tony Khan did it. He did it.
Yeah.
He created a national, and again, only a billionaire could do it. Only a
Mhm.
billionaire could do it.
Well, when Ted Turner wanted to get back into pro wrestling in the early 2000s, they were like, you were going to need to put up like a couple $100 million, and then you're going to have to take losses and you're going to have to stick with it. And he said he didn't want to do it. So it was going to take somebody like that had that kind of equity that could actually lose money in the beginning and to make it look like a major league production in order for a television station like TNT and like TBS to even take a chance on it. It had to look big time. He had to have the right stars and he had to have the financial backing to be able to withstand just in case it failed that he would be okay, right? It had to have somebody like that with some balls.
It's not just the financial backing, because Live Golf has financial backing,
Yeah.
but the Saudis haven't been able to massage a real TV deal. Tony Khan had connections, right? Because
Yeah.
Tony Khan's got that NFL money. He's got that NFL pedigree. So he was able to leverage that into getting, I almost called it Nitro, into getting Dynamite primetime cable from jump, right?
Yeah.
And like the market was really wanting that. WWE was bad in 2019. It wasn't good at all. So they needed, the market really wanted something. And Tony Khan and those guys came along, right place, right time. And there have definitely been some growing pains along the way, but that's pro wrestling, man. Like at this point, AEW has outlived Dusty Rhodes booking Crockett.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
That's why they've outlived. They're close to outliving Bischoff booking Nitro. Right, they're getting close. 2019 is when they started. We're coming up on 4 years of Dynamite, right? And they're on the verge of signing a $5 billion deal. They will absolutely. I know Bischoff took over in '93, but I'm talking like when Nitro started.
They've already done it because Bischoff didn't make it 4 years. Bischoff got fired in the summer of '99. So Bischoff was almost 4 years. We will be at 4 years of AEW content this month. This month is 4 years. We will hit 4 years of Dynamite in October. So Tony when Ted actually cared about paying attention to what Bischoff was doing, it's about to eclipse that. And like it's crazy to think about that because I know for us that was our youth. So I mean it's just it seemed like WCW and Nitro was just a part of life. And in reality, it's a blink of an eye, you know?